How's it going, and welcome to The Guitar Effect. My name's Rob. In this episode we're going to be talking about this beauty, the Lovepedal Reverb Deluxe. But before we do, I'll ask you always to please like and subscribe and hit the notifications bell while you're at it so you can be kept up to date every time I put out a new video. So, the Reverb Deluxe. This is the Reverb Deluxe, and what it is basically, ironically, a deluxe reverb. It's the reverb and the kind of preamp sound from a deluxe reverb. The amp is on one switch and the reverb is on the other. The reverb is a spring reverb with some really great controls, including the sensitivity control, a reverb decay and pre-delay. Pre-delay obviously is how long it takes for the reverb trail to come in. The reverb is how much mix the reverb is, and the dwell, I think it's called, or decay, is how long it takes the reverb to die away. And that's all controlled with this switch. And then on the other side, there's level, gain, tone, and bass. And that is basically the kind of preamp sound or the amp sound from a deluxe reverb. And the idea with this pedal, you plug it into the front end of a clean amp and you use it to reshape the tone of that amp into the sound of a deluxe reverb. And at that, it's very good. So one thing I want to talk about this pedal. The reason I bought this pedal was I'd had my eye on it I buy a lot of my stuff from a website here in Ireland called adverts.ie, which is kind of like a Craigslist kind of thing. Which has a really good music section. So the reason that I bought this was I've been looking around for a while for an alternative to my Joyo American Sound pedal. I use a Joyo American Sound pedal whenever I need to go direct at the moment. Okay, so right now I have it plugged into the effects loop of a Nux Cerberus as my kind of main direct to board rig, which I'll put a link up to that rig here. But I've also used it with the HX effects in that capacity. I've used it by itself in that capacity. And it's an amazing pedal. For like €30, you get a really great direct to amplifier or direct to mixing desk amp replacement. Really, now that's a copy of a Tech 21 blonde pedal. But I mean, the difference between it and far more expensive amp modeling solutions are not as great as you might think. Recently, I've gotten the Moore Preamp Live, which I made a video about, in the same context, connecting it with the Cerberus to offer a way more advanced multi-amp kind of switching rig. And it is better, it is more impressive, but the unit itself is way more expensive and it's way too big for any of the boards that I have. So I'd had my eye on this for a while, and I intended on using it as a deluxe reverb with an IOR after it of a Deluxe Reverb 112 cabinet. And I used it to go direct. Now, there's an interesting thing that I've discovered, and I should have known this beforehand, it's a pretty widely known fact, but if something is sold as a distortion pedal and not a preamp, which this is, by the way, it's sold as an amp in a box, but not necessarily as an amp in a box distortion pedal, really, or EQ pedal, I guess you could call it, but it's not sold as a preamp. I don't know if the American Sound is sold as a preamp, but I think it is. And it works way better in that context. So this works brilliant as a pedal going into the front of the amplifier. It doesn't work great plugged direct into the desk, and you'll see that in the audio. Like, it works fine, and you could get away with it with a nice IOR, but it doesn't work as well as the American Sound as a preamp pedal, which I thought was really interesting. Now, I've seen on that pedal show before, they've done a whole section about the difference between a preamp pedal and a distortion pedal, and it's to do with output level from what I can tell. However, I've gotten a preamp pedal and a distortion pedal and matched the output levels of them using the gain on my interface to make sure that I'm getting enough output out of a distortion pedal. Still doesn't seem to solve the problem. This works amazing reshaping the front of an amplifier, but doesn't work particularly well going into straight into my mixer or straight into my interface, in this case with an IOR loaded in Logic. And I also, ironically, neither does the Bogner Blue, which is my main overdrive pedal on my main board, or my main amp in a box pedal. And it is that, it's an amp in a box. It's a very amp-like character when going in front of, like, adding dirt to an existing amplifier, but doesn't work at all going into the interface, like, directly. I don't know what it is. Like I said, I think it's the main concern seems to be the drive pedals don't give out enough level, or maybe too much level. I don't really know which it is. But this didn't work in that context, and neither does the Bogner Blue. But they both worked. I mean, the Bogner Blue is by far the best sounding amp in a box overdrive pedal to my taste that I've ever heard. Actually, I'll put a link to the Bogner Blue up here. Phenomenal pedal. If you're playing a clean amp particularly like a Plexi style amp, and you want to have a distortion on that amp that sounds like a driven Marshall, it is phenomenal. And it's got an amazing secondary boost built in as well that you can control remotely. But anyway, this is not about the Bogner Blade. So I bought this for that purpose. Doesn't really fulfill that purpose, and as a result of it, I'm probably not going to keep it because I kind of don't have a use for it. But it was really interesting to see, and I finally made up my mind that I do not buy a distortion box as a preamp. They're not the same thing. So with that in mind, we should probably take a listen to it. So here you go, the audio example of the Reverb Deluxe by Lovepedal. Okay, so how I'm going to go about this, I have my 1960s reissue Fender Classic Player series. I can't remember. It's like one or two series is back from the Mexican standard range, and it's a 60s Telecaster. It's got standard Telecaster pickups. So this is, for all in effect, a standard Telecaster with a Rosewood. And I'm playing into the Reverb Deluxe, out of the Reverb Deluxe, into the clean channel of my Koch Studiotone 20. The bright switch is on and all the EQ straight up. Neck pickup sounds like this. This is without the pedal. Middle like this. And bridge. It's quite a bright kind of sound. Nice strummy kind of thing. In the middle position. And neck. So going on down to the Reverb Deluxe, what do the different switches do? So the amp reshapes the preamp. Neck pickup gives it more mid, less top end, probably an equal amount of bass. Let's just check that. Yeah, the bass stays the same, it gets way more mid and a little bit less chimey top end. Middle setting. Right now, the settings on the pedal are all pretty much flat, except the drive is bumped a little bit to maybe, 2 o'clock? And the bridge pickup. So I can make that more kind of bassy. Or I can wind the bass off. And I can wind the tone off and make it less toppy. Still a nice sound. Or then I can wind the tone on and bring the treble up. Right the way up. Not a horrible sound. It's a really good pedal actually. And then I can bring the level up to drive the front end to my amp. Kind of functioning like a boost in that way, or I can bring the gain level down and bring the gain right up. So it's interesting how different those two drive textures are. This is a bit more amp-like to me. That's with the level up, driving the front end of your amplifier, and then the drive. Kind of a more like muddy, pushed MIDI thing. So I think that explains what the overdrive characteristic is, but also just important to note again, you're changing, even on clean sound, changing the clean character of the amp. So that's it on, this is it off. A much more MIDI, less toppy, probably comparable bass, kind of a warmer sound. So then moving on to the reverb, right? So I'll leave the pedal on. It's a really, really beautiful reverb. So what I'll do is I'll put the reverb time and decay up high, but I'll also put the sensitivity up high. This is really interesting, right? So if you put the sensitivity up high, what it does is, if you play lightly, there's not a lot of reverb, but if you play hard, there's a lot of reverb. It's lovely. Really cool spring reverb emulation. So bringing that into more kind of usable settings. But sensitivity then low kind of remains at the same level all the time. So if I go, I should demonstrate that with a bit more. With the sensitivity up high, you can see it comes in more when you hit harder, and with sensitivity low, it's the same. With sensitivity low. So basically sensitivity on the reverb means you hit the reverb hard, or you hit the pedal hard, it does a bigger reverb trail. You keep the picking low, it keeps it low. The pre-delay obviously is how much time there is after you hit the strings before the reverb comes in. You can use an audible delay there with it high, and if I bring it down to nothing, it's immediate. Like the pre-delay about there. The decay obviously is the length of the reverb trail. And the reverb is the amount of reverb in the signal. Not a lot. A lot. With a lot of decay. Okay. That's where I like it basically. And that's basically the reverb and the amp playing into the front end of an amp. What I'm going to do now is just switch the input direct into my interface and show you how it sounds going direct. I'm using a line 6 Allure free Deluxe 112 cabinet emulation. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm back now, and I have my guitar plugged direct into my recording interface. I have a IOR. I can never remember the term right. I have an IOR on, and it sounds like this. Back pickup, middle pickup, neck pickup. So it's taken off a little bit of that harshness that comes with playing direct with the IOR, but here it is with the amp plugged in the front. Put on the reverb as well. So how I would normally do this is, in these situations you tend to need a bit more top end. I'm going to bring the drive up a little bit to give it more presence. So what I would say about this, and it's interesting, drive up full. I bought this pedal for this purpose. I was going to use it with my Nook Cerberus board to replace the Joyo American sound. This may seem like a real dumb thing to a lot of people out there, as in I've been really dumb, but this is an overdrive pedal. The amp section of this is intended to be put in front of an amp. It's not intended as a preamp. And it actually doesn't sound as good as the Joyo American sound in that context. It sounds great going into the front of an amp. It imparts the sound of a Deluxe Reverb, and it has that beautiful reverb on board. But I don't think in this context, when you're playing direct into a computer with an I/O, it is necessarily as pleasing. Without the reverb, just so you can hear it. It's not bad. Nice pickup. Middle setting. Now, I just wouldn't use this pedal in that context. It just doesn't give the right sort of feel. So there you go. I think as a unit to get, if you're looking for a kind of an interesting overdrive with a cool reverb on board, it's better to use it in front of an amp and not to think about going direct with it. So there you go. As great a job as this does emulating a Deluxe Reverb into the front of the amplifier, and it really does an amazing job at that, and it's a really satisfying feeling pedal to play under your fingers. I really like it in that context. Right now, as it stands, I can't really think of a use for it in my originals or covers applications, so I'm probably going to be moving it on. I think if you're looking to add the flavour of a Deluxe Reverb both in its amp sound and its reverb, this is a really great choice. Not sure they're made anymore, actually. And I think if you are, they might be actually made, I don't know. But I think if you're looking for something as a Deluxe Reverb amp simulator with an IOR, look elsewhere. Get a preamp, don't get an overdrive pedal or an amp in a box pedal. They're different things. I don't know why. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's something to do with output levels and stuff like that. This doesn't work, in my opinion, in that context. So there you go. Thanks for watching, as always, particularly if you've gotten this far. If you have any questions or any comments, please throw them down below. Always happy to talk to people in the comments. And hopefully I'll see you in another video again soon. Oh, and please like and subscribe. Cheers. Take it easy. Bye-bye.